Hello? Those working? Yeah. There's more like, I don't know how loud you can be able to be. I'm very loud, so I don't need it. But first, for the sake of our speakers, I like to include them. All right, everybody, welcome to DenverScript. As for those of you following along closely at home, you might notice I am not Matt Webb. Matt is out today, and so is Mike. So you guys are stuck with just me today. So, and the crowd groans. So let's move on. We couldn't do these meetups without our sponsors, so thank you to Code Talent for sponsoring the venue and the beer. Say thanks, Kevin, in the back. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Kevin. There we go. How many of you guys know what Code Talent does? Perfect. I couldn't have him do the pitch, but let me know if I do all right.
Yeah, go for it.
Code Talent is a talent recruiting agency focused specifically on helping both companies find technical talent and helping technical talent find companies to go work at. It's the only thing they focus on. They're really good at it. And we've had a really good relationship with them for probably like 5 years or more, right?
Whenever DenverScript started, I don't know when that was. A little obvious, at least 5 years.
Yeah, we actually moved offices with them. So they've been long supporters. Really appreciate it. Go Spot Check is sponsoring the food. Yay, food. It will get there, I promise. just give me it's like a trusting applause that it will show up, I promise.
That's the end result.
Yeah, exactly. With the K, coming in hard. That was perfect. Go Spot Check. Oh, here are my speaking notes. Ready? Is a software designed with a mobile worker in mind. They use complete surveys and audits to gather real-time information to confirm the desired activity is being met. Basically, they do a point of sales check to make sure that stuff is still there. Is that Kyle?
It is.
Ready? Shame! 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 We started at 6:15, dude. The last time that we started at 6:15 right on time and I walked in late, you ran a shame chant against me. And now this time all of a sudden you think we start later because you're late. Everyone, that's your first speaker. We later we're doing a call for speakers. Well, wait, we'll get to there. Open Collective. Open Collective, DenverScript's now an Open Collective, which means that we can accept donations. All donations that you contribute, it's completely transparent. You see who has donated and where the funds go to. This helps for things like if we have gaps in months for sponsorship for food or drinks, which has happened before, and us, the organizers, had to pay for your pizza. So that's good that when that happens to have that fail safe. And also for things like these cool stickers and stuff. So if you'd like to donate, please do reach out to us and let you know how. Here's how you do it. This is what an Open Collective is, and there's the link. So what's going on in JavaScript land? Normally what we do for this segment is we go over, I open up with the stuff that I'm excited about with new Chrome DevTools. We don't have any new DevTools this month since they're on a 6-week release cycle. We're gonna miss them, every third time, I guess, 2/3. Anyway, so what are you guys excited about in JavaScript land? This can be anything at all from as broad as technology trends going on in the JavaScript language, new frameworks coming out, or it can be something like as specific as a high-five moment that you had that's something's been around forever, but you just figured out how to do this thing and you're really excited about it. Anything at all. Who's going first? Come on. No one's excited about anything this month? What's a big, good win moment you had to work this month? Yes?
I used the stack trace and Chrome development tools. It took me about 30 minutes to find out where something was coming from. That really helped me hit that. That's what's coming from.
Cool. You mean in the console itself, navigate back through the stack trace there?
Yep.
Yeah. Super handy, right? Because you can click on any of those links and they'll take you to the relative call for all of them. Yeah, really neat. Matt always does this and I forget. High-five moments. Use stack. Awesome. What else are you guys excited about? Yeah.
I got the Esri map tools to work with TypeScript.
The what?
Esri ESRI map tools.
We should talk after.
You're working on it too?
As someone on a different team.
Sweet. And for some of these things too, as we list them, what we'll do is, if there's any like good documentation that goes with these things, we'll link them as well. And all of these notes will be posted to the comments section of today's meetup as well. What else? Anybody hear any good news going on in JavaScript land? Yes.
TypeScript 3.7 is adding optional chain. It's awesome.
Yes.
Oh, is it? That's awesome.
Yeah, and knowledgeable.
You want to give a 10-second summary of what optional chaining is?
It lets you put, so syntactically it's a question mark before
Yep.
accessors, and it makes it so that it short circuits when you're trying to access them. So you don't have to do foo and foo.bar and
Yeah. Super cool.
Or the Lodash get there. So.
yeah, so that's what it
Right.
and once you do it, type
Sweet. What else?
Not really JavaScript specific, but Oktoberfest starts October 1st.
Oh, perfect.
And Denver Devs is doing their first Hacktober event. I am spacing on the date. I want to say it's October 11th at Flatiron, 2 blocks north.
Sweet. October 11th is also the organizers' party, so make sure those don't conflict.
Shit, it might. All right.
Okay. What else? What else are you guys excited about?
Prisma 2.
Prisma 2?
Yeah, it's an ORM layer for, right now it's just for SQL. But basically you can build out a GraphQL API and an SQL database.
Oh,
It's
sweet.
just like 120 lines of code.
Nice.
It's not ready for prime time, but it's in preview.
Super cool. What else?
10th.
All right. It is the 10th. So we'll do the 10th. How do you,
Thank you.
all right. What else? Let's get like one more high five moment. Something you're just like, okay, finally got that working. Fixed a cool bug, figured out how to work with some new thing. Come on. Yes.
This is so lame, but no one else raising their hand. I'm a back-end dev. I throw it into a front-end ticket. I had no idea that Chrome gave the option to right-click on any element and save it as a global variable.
Yeah.
That is incredibly useful to know. This is very, very good information. Yes, it got me unblocked. And thank you, Chrome, for making that.
Awesome.
For translating that and making it work.
Cool. Anyone else before we close out JavaScript land? Any last sort of burning thought? Are you excited about anything in particular in JavaScript land this month?
Not particular, maybe Svelte.
Okay. What about it?
This seems cool. Zelinsky's working on a class for it.
What was that?
Zelinsky, Scott, is working on a class for it on level 2.
Sweet. All right. Anything else, guys? All right, cool. So new JS land. Actually, what Gabriel said a little bit earlier, I think was a great point. I'm glad you said that because it's a big part of why we do this JS land thing. So we have a couple of really good speakers for you tonight, but there's a lot of really talented and thoughtful people out in the Denver industry that are working on a lot of cool stuff. So if somebody raised their hand and talked about something just now that you find interesting, we have a full fridge full of beer, and we will eventually have pizza. And so, catch up with each other and share some of those cool things you guys are working on. Okay. Job announcements. Who's got job announcements that they're sharing? I have one to read, format web. Let me find it. Anyone else in the meantime want to come up and do a job announcement?
Yeah, go.
Come on up.
Hello, I'm going to be talking a little bit later. My name is Gabriel. I work for Charter Communications. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But we are looking for a JavaScript library developer to work on our analytics library. Basically, all the apps that we have that bring in data from users. It's the connector that connects that to basically our pipeline that sends that to a reporting team, data science, and all that. So we're looking for that role. It's going to be a contract role, but if you're interested, talk to me afterwards.
Sweet. And then also, sorry, any other job announcements? Yeah, come on up. While he's coming up, what I was going to say was, for anybody announcing job postings, please, I encourage you afterwards, go to today's meetup page and then post the link to those applications. And so those people here don't have to try and write down every detail of it. Also, we're streaming and this is recorded, so all right, come on up.
Hi, I'm Chris. Work at Panasonic at the airport with the train. We're hiring a mid to junior level front end engineer, React stack. We're working on a lot of greenfield stuff. We're doing mapping technologies, so stuff with Esri. If you've ever worked in any mapping technology, Google Maps, Mapbox, and that stuff, you could definitely use some hands doing that. Get to work on things like code libraries and different tools all across the board. So if you're interested, talk to me after this.
Awesome, thank you.
And I'll post it on.
Perfect, thank you. Any others? All right, Go Spot Check, who's one of our sponsors, is looking for a mid-level front end. Yeah, so you heard a little about what Go Spot Check does. They're looking for a mid-level. You'll be working with Matt Webb, who's one of the organizers of this meetup. He's a really cool dude. If you're interested, send him a message on DenverScript or on Denver Devs. Cool. Last call for job announcements. Call for speakers. So every month, the speakers that come up here are people who just have good ideas they want to share with the community. If you have a good idea you want to share with the community, please let us know. I promise that I will not badger you as I did Kyle. We only do that to our veteran speakers. Anybody who is new gets a break, even if they show up a little bit late. Thanks, Kyle. But yeah, and that being said, right, we have some really great talks today, but even if you are relatively new to the industry, I highly encourage you to think about things that you might want to speak about. We have both a short talk and a long talk. The short talk is 8 to 10 minutes. The long talk is 20 to 30 minutes. But if you really want to get a little bit more involved in the community and sort of, get your feet wet, please come talk to me or any of the organizers or reach out to us on Denver Devs. And we're happy to chat with you about your idea and how you can turn it into a short talk to sort of get used to the whole thing. If you're relatively new, actually, here's a good question. How many people here would consider themselves in the junior-ish range? Okay, so about half the audience, right? So that means that for those of you that raise your hands, okay, of those of you that raise your hands, how many of you have given a talk at a meetup before? Kyle, you're not in the junior-ish range, Kyle.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. But, okay, so you see that you have a target audience of about half people in the audience that are probably interested in the same kind of stuff that you're just learning or just working on, right? So come and talk with us. Give a short talk. Job announcements going the wrong direction. Great. So that being said, it brings us to our first speaker, Mr. Kyle Coberly. While Kyle is getting set up, this would be a great time if you want to get another round of beers or get some water, go to the bathroom. Fact. No, seriously, if you want to get a beer, go ahead and do it.
Get a beer.
Only if you'd like to.
I insist.
I just put up the thing of it. You weren't up here, so I play.
Oh, perfect.
Whatever's easier.
It's easier to use yours, but I wanted to show everybody. I'll just hold it up. It's stupid. Remember this guy, like the Boston Dynamics robot dog? And then they kick him at the end of the video, and you're like, no! I don't know why I'm so emotionally invested in this. I just got sent something back. There we go. Now that thing can do gymnastics.
Holy shit.
And do flips and shit. Yikes! It remembers.
All hail our robotic overlord.
Also, speaking of it remembers, did you also hear that Boston Dynamics made a rule they're not allowed to kick the robots anymore?
Good. Like, they were trying to demonstrate how stable it is, but it looks like they're just taking turns kicking a dog. It's like, yeah, and then it restabilizes. And
so it made a lot of people really upset. So now they can't kick the robots over.
Just feels good.
Ladies and gentlemen, a good friend of mine, not to be a good friend of yours, Kyle Coberly.
Feels nice to be on the other side of that. I think it's the first time.
Yeah, cheers. That's Kyle's line.
All right, so we're going to talk about behavior-driven development syntax. Origin of this talk, last week, Was anybody there for all the shit I talked about BDD and code opinions last week? No one? All right. Who's on Denver Devs? I should see more hands. There's a lot of hands. Should still see more hands. I'd highly recommend joining the Code Opinions channel. It is a bunch of opinionated assholes yelling at each other all day. You'll also learn a lot of things. And I want to tirade about how much I don't like BDD syntax last week. And when Guillermo was looking for speakers, I was like, I think it's calling. I should invest in learning BDD syntax and share it with all of you. I'm glad I did. I learned a lot putting this talk together, and I'm a lot more interested in this than I was last week. So a little bit about myself. Oh, there's slides. There was no slide here. All right, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Oh my goodness gracious. Who are you people?
We're gonna learn.
Good, awesome. Are you? There you go.
Great. I'm gonna grab some chairs. Or do you like the standing room more too?
So a little bit about myself. I'm an educator. I am the lead instructor over at the Flatiron school, just up the street. This is a school that these dummies go to. Before that, I ran Galvanize for about 3 years. And I've been teaching I was telling somebody this morning that I counted it up on my hands and toes, and Jesus Christ, almost 20 years. I'm also a business dork. I'm the executive director of an organization called Develop Denver, that puts on a conference once a year. Who went to Develop Denver this year? Woo! Hey, did you have a good fucking time?
Yeah!
Got it right. And then I'm also a software developer. I've worked primarily in education, but I've worked for Pearson Education, for Health Scholars, a variety of education at tech companies. And by the end of this relatively short talk, I hope you will be able to recall the 3 types of chai particles. All right, neat. Let's dive in. So test first development is this red-green refactor cycle that we talk about all the time. You write a failing test. This makes sure that we're not getting false positives. This also helps us make sure that we're doing something meaningful that moves the project forward. Then we make the test pass, crook or hook, hell or high water, the fastest way possible to just make it turn green. And then we make the code good, sustainable, extensible, all the things we value in code. And there are 2 different approaches to making this happen. One is the TDD that we're generally familiar with. And TDD is kind of looks like this. We're stating a fact about the system. We're saying that if we do this thing, we get this result. And the thing that distinguishes this from BDD is this is always written from the system's perspective. We're saying, all right, if this is the application, I'm describing these various facts about it. And there's a very subtle perspective shift that happens in BDD. And you're saying that I expect that the system will have this behavior if I do this thing. And that small perspective shift is everything. I'll also say that every single assertion that you can do in TDD, you can also do in BDD. This isn't different capabilities. This isn't different anything other than your perspective shift. I'll also say that BDD goes a lot deeper than this particular syntax. But I think like the most fundamental difference is in TDD, you're making assertions about components. You're saying this class that I wrote, this function that I wrote, these things will behave a particular way. BDD is always taken from the user's perspective. As a non-technical user of this system, what is the action that I take that causes a state change, and how am I sure that that happened? So in TDD, we tend to talk about components, and in BDD, we tend to talk about features. It tests all of the exact same things, but a feature may reach across components and may not hit every single part of a component. And that's really the big thing that we're hitting on. And there's 2 things that, in the research that I did for this talk on BDD, that are we're thinking about. What mindset does writing the test put you in? Because it's very easy, and anybody who's like tried to write tests and really wrestled with the value of them has run across this, where you can assert a billion fucking facts about your system that don't give you more confidence about the code, that don't move the project forward, that are honestly kind of a waste of time. As soon as you change something, you need to rewrite all the tests. You're like, why am I doing this? Am I just doing this to like impress Kent Beck? And if you do it from the user's perspective, you're talking about incremental steps toward making the final product. Every single test you write should be making the final product that much more complete. The next one is, can non-technical people understand your assertions? So an interesting characteristic to BDD is that in a lot of BDD disciplines, it's not just software developers that write the tests. Like literally your dopey boss, your customer, people who don't necessarily have that deep a technical background but are invested in the outcome of the product, write the tests. It's supposed to be written in a very natural language style so that as you and the customer are helping develop your shared understanding of what the product should be, you can use like regular English language to do that. And so as they go, and also this, they don't just have to tell you this on like a Skype call you forget to take notes on. They can literally write the test that is automatically running against your software to determine whether or not it's done. And that ends up being a bridge between the technical and business elements of software you write. All right, so let's get a little bit more technical about how these assertions are written. So today we're going to talk about a BDD library or a testing assertion library called Chai. Chai also has a TDD feature to it where you can do assert equal, assert deep equal, assert greater than, all of like the things that you're probably more familiar with in testing. But it also comes with two different syntaxes that are more aimed towards BDD. One of them is called expect, and the other one is called should. We're going to be talking about expect today, but should is actually very similar. The difference is that expect is a function that takes in the thing that you're running, and then you run assertions on that. Should actually changes the object prototype. And so you say, like, whatever my result of my thing is, dot should, and then you go off of there. And there's a couple of, especially in JavaScript, kind of wacky corner cases with how that works. If any of you have written Cypress tests before, Cypress does should by default. Should is killer. All of the things that we're going to talk about in this talk also apply to should. But if you're just writing React tests or Jest tests or something that is a little bit lower level than that, I'd stick with expect. And Chai is also test order agnostic. So it works with Jest, works with Mocha, works with Cypress, works with anything. All it does is you give it some things and it throws an error or it doesn't. So it's compatible with anything. So if you'll call back to the learning objective, I'm trying to get you to remember the three different kinds of Chai particles. And this is where this really branches off in the more assert-based syntax. Expect particles, there's three different ones. And this is a great example of what a Chai expect test looks like. And the three particles that are present in this are chainers. Chainers, like two up here, don't do anything. And that's very counterintuitive, especially to programmers. All they do is make the test more readable from like a natural language perspective. There's tons of them. And if you're ever curious if the thing you're doing counts as a chainer, the Chai docs have an extensive list of what counts as a chainer. But it's almost like you didn't do anything at all. Only purpose is to make the test readable. The next thing is the assertion. This is where all the action is happening. This is all the stuff that we do in assert. That's happening there. And we'll give some specific examples of each of these. But the third different kind of particle is flags. flags change the behavior of assertions. So in this case, equal is, are these the same memory reference? Deep equal is, are these the same values? Other flags, we'll talk about in a second, include things like not, where it's just inverting whatever the result of your assertion is. But these three things together are the structure of every try expect test. Again, the objective of this lesson is you remember these three things. When you leave here, you're not going to be able to write an expect test, but hopefully this mental framework helps you wrestle through it a little bit better than what the docs give you. All right, so let's talk about some chainers. When I was learning this, the thing that helped me the most is these two particular ones. Because when I was talking the aforementioned shit about this syntax last week, my main gripe was that natural language has a lot of nuance to it and programming doesn't. And so I feel like there's a massive impedance mismatch between those two things. The first thing that helped me get past that was these two chainers. If you think of it less as expect and more like expect to, I feel like I have way fewer language options, and that's when it actually felt truly natural to write things that come after that. I go, I expect this to, or I expect this to be. The things that you do after that come pretty naturally. Have and has are kind of similar in that regard, where you can say that, like, I expect this to have, or I expect that this has. You can do small particles like this, and also things like this are chainers. They don't do anything, but they allow you to do something pretty cool. If you say, I want this to happen, but not this, not is the actual thing doing the work. That's the assertion. Or sorry, that's the flag that changes whatever assertion you're doing next. But the but keyword helps that read a lot more naturally. Similarly, you can do more than one assertion in a chain, and the and keyword helps that read more naturally. So for assertions, equal, bread and butter. You're doing regular value-based equality on something. And if you need to do object like deep nested value equality, we'll have the deep flag for that. If you want to check that an object has a property, we have the property keyword. A and, which are also chainers, and this is like where this gets a little bit weird. The same word could be a chainer and an assertion. A and, you can do type assertions on. So you can say, I expect this to be a string. I expect this to be an object. And then true and false are self-explanatory. Okay is if you want something to be truthy. Any guesses what if we want something to not be truthy?
Not okay.
Not okay, exactly. We invert it. And then exist is pretty handy for that also. And empty kind of goes along with that. We can assert the presence of something, or that something exists, but it's an array that doesn't have any members. It's an object that doesn't have any properties, so it's something like empty. And then members and keys are ways to test whether or not an object or array at least has some members, some keys, and we have flags that can make that, oh, this is exactly what it has. This is that kind of thing. And then include is kind of a secret weapon in BDD syntax. So like this is a lot nicer when you're testing that like headings include a certain text, especially with HTML documents, because a lot of times in HTML documents you get a bunch of white space on either side. And that's fine. You're also visually checking it with whatever visual QA process you have. Yeah, somebody?
With and, does it have to be grammatically correct? Can it be a and here?
Yes, you absolutely, they're synonyms.
Sure.
They're aliases. Good point. And then with include, you can say the title or the heading or whatever should include this, and it'll ignore any other white space or formatting characters or something like that, which I find particularly Length of this this is one of the few things that you kind of need to like drink the Kool-Aid on with BDD syntax. You can't do .length because since that means an actual thing in JavaScript, you get very unpredictable results with that. So length of is the chai way to give you how many things are in an array, how long a string is, without interfering with what chai is doing or otherwise like kind of unpredictable behavior with the like actual primitives themselves. Cool. Lastly, flags. Flags are things that change the behavior of assertions. Things like not. It's just the inverse of whatever an assertion returns. Deep. So it'll take any object comparison you're making and make it a value-based comparison. Nested. If you're checking for a property, it's going to check for it directly on that object. If you want it somewhere deeply nested inside of that, the nested keyword opens up a new syntax for letting you do that. Ordered, you can say, hey, this array should have these members, and they need to be in this order. All right, so last thing, I want to talk about a couple examples of what this looks like in practice. So basic equality, this is like our bread and butter of test-driven development, expressed in this more fluent syntax. So we expect something to equal this. We expect it to deep equal that. We expect it to not equal that. Or we expect it to have a particular length of some value. And then this is something that I think BDD, right off the bat, does a shit ton better than TDD syntax, is the more abstract matching kinds of things. So this has a nested property of this, and that's that nested syntax that I was talking about. That it includes something, that it has keys. It might also have other keys, but it at least has those. And then this is for objects. This is a similar syntax for arrays. We're like, hey, these two things need to be present on the object. These need to be members of the array. And you even have like a pretty dope syntax for doing regex matching. And these are something that's obviously very possible to do in TDD-based syntax. However, with the BDD syntax, you end up writing so much less logic. And I think everybody has run into a situation at some point trying to write a test where you end up writing so much logic in the test. It's like, okay, well, what test do we need to write for this thing this test that I just wrote? And I think you get away from that with this more fluid syntax. And that's all I have to say about the matter. I have like 2 or 3 questions. What you got? Yeah.
So you said before you started that you didn't like BDD.
Correct.
Or has this changed your opinion?
It absolutely has. And I think that the big change for me was less this syntax, which was the thing that I was complaining about. And when I started understanding why this syntax is the way that it is, I ended up having to like kind of eat the whole BDD pie, which again goes way deeper than this syntax. And I was like, no, of course, this actually solves a lot of really common issues with getting value out of tests and enables the kind of agile collaboration you hope exists between a development team and customers in like a pretty deep way. And this syntax is a part of that. In a lot of ways, it's a non-negotiable part of that. And so it's not just a more obnoxious way to write tests. It's part of a much bigger philosophy. And that I'm increasingly getting bought into. Cool, what else? Yeah. Brooks, what's your mind?
Can you use a flag after the, what is it,
The assertion?
The assertion?
No. The flags generally apply to every assertion that comes after them. And so if you want to do like multiple assertions, we tend to do one before this assertion. If you need to undo that flag, there's also some syntax to reverse that for whatever else.
But for promises, you can do to be fulfilled, and then follow up some things that happen after.
Yes. Yeah.
So I haven't really thought about this before. Can you skip chainers?
Oh, yeah, they're not required.
They're not required at all. I've never even thought about it. I read a lot of tests.
No.
I've never even thought to skip.
No, you can write like a very grammatically incorrect thing, but fundamentally the assertion, like that's your test. That's your assert.equal. You can do expect dot equal and do 3 assertions in a row without any chainers. They're completely irrelevant. But when you're trying to communicate with your business stakeholder, does this do what you want it to do? That gives you a shared language that doesn't do this like beep boop beep boop. I am a programmer. I must talk like an asshole. Thing that we do with like everything else that we write. Cool. One more. What else on your mind? Yeah.
So much as a comment. So touch on a few kind of weird edge cases we were trying.
Yes.
Had some initial cases.
Yes.
TypeScript types and ESLint plugin chai. Both super useful for branching stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely.
You can definitely find yourself writing tests that don't actually test anything because of weird syntax issues.
Yes.
And those are some really good plugins for chai. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Like working promises or the DOM or something.
Oh, definitely. I'll also say, and this is a thing that I learned, like testing culture really encourages you making architectures that are testable. And so, for example, the second that I have to pull sign-on into a test suite, that's just a pause for me. It's like, wait a minute, did I fuck up my architecture? The sign-on is a test double framework, so it lets you do fakes, stubs, mocks, lots of kinds of things. And you need those in many different scenarios. But if you're reaching for it immediately, it's just a step back. Is there a way that I could have done this where it doesn't depend on all these external things? And there's a couple of those sorts of things. And I think that, like, honestly, the BDD syntax really helps with that. But assuming that that is the right call to make, holy fuck, having those like plugins and type assertions and stuff really does help a lot.
So basically, whatever you're using, you can
Indeed.
But sorry, and along those lines, sign-on has been around for a while now. As Kyle said, it's insanely useful in terms of like doing spies and stubs on what to expect back from functions or to listen to functions, see if things actually happen. How many people here are comfortable with sign-on? Sweet. So probably a pretty good short talk topic, right? Somebody wants to research that and give a talk on sign-on, what is spy, stub, and mock are, right? That'd be really helpful for 95% of the audience sitting here today, right? So things like that to think about. You're probably not the only person to know what that is, right? Sorry.
Definitely. All right. Thank you so much for letting me talk.
A couple of things. Are you guys kind of hot? Okay, I'm gonna open these garage doors up. In the meantime, doing that timing is fantastic. During this break would be a great time to get another beer or get some pizza. Normally when I say that, the pizza's already out by the end of the first week.
Almost wear blacks.
Wow,
It's been a while. Yeah. Come on. I know, that's a lot. Yeah. How have you been? No. Yeah. Yeah, I saw you. That's the only time I see you.
thoughts while everyone gets
So, fella?
Let's make our way back to the seats.
Come on. Yes. This is what the ants will be looking at. Yeah, this is what you get for turning a 4K screen to.
It's a pretty cool background though.
Yeah, it's the Windows default background.
I still like it.
I didn't know if you were being a smart ass or not.
I wasn't.
I was like,
I have a Mac.
that's default, right?
I didn't, and I still enjoy
It
it.
is pretty though. They have a better like, watch of default backgrounds these days. You don't use Windows 10.
Thank you guys for your patience. Yeah, so for all you Apple fans, my MacBook gave up the ghost yesterday, so that was fun. And then so I was like, okay, well I've got my Linux distro, so for all you Linux fans, I was like, great, let's use that. Well, that one decided it's only going to be booting to the command line, so no desktop environment for me. So it's Windows for everyone. That doesn't. Yeah, it was the last OS standing. So all you Windows fans, if there are any.
If there are, there's one.
Yeah, I found them.
Found the one.
Oh, great! That looks
There
perfect.
you go. Over back.
It's good.
You ready to roll?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. This is a great month because I had the pleasure of bringing on two of my good friends to be speakers. So for the second time tonight, good friend of mine, about to be a good friend of yours, Gabriel Konkle.
I am kind of soft-spoken, as he alluded to earlier, so this is why he really set this up. Yeah, Kyle did not. So anyways, how to hire and be hired. I made sure to put that these are my unconventional theories because I know a little bit and a lot of people know better, but I'll just tell you what I think. So what am I going to discuss? Basically just the muddied waters of hiring, if you didn't guess already. First, I'm going to talk to hiring managers, if there are any, which I think there's a couple in the crowd. And then if I'm any judge of meetups, there's probably a sizable amount of people looking for jobs. So I'll be talking to you guys second about how to be hired. But one important thing to remember as we're going through this talk, if there's really any universal truth in the universe, it's that there are no universal truths. That might rub you the wrong way depending on your religious leanings. That's why we have beer. So another one. Or, pizza, depending on your religious leanings. So basically how this talk is going to go, it's just going to be my opinions, not facts. And we'll roll with that, and you guys can challenge me on my opinions afterwards. I'd love that. So I should probably introduce myself. I'm Gabriel Konkle, as I mentioned before. I work with Charter. I'm a senior manager of product insights, which is a bunch of gibberish that basically means I basically respond to a lot of emails, answer a lot of chat, go to a ton of meetings, also that the devs can actually get some dev work done. And then it also kind of means that I code on the weekends, so I stay relevant, but that's a whole other talk altogether. So not to. And most importantly, why do you actually care about what I'm talking about? I'm no expert, but I have done my fair share of hiring for Charter the past year. I've probably done almost 100 tech screens this year. I've done dozens of interviews. I've had so many recruiters asking to buy me coffee and all that fun stuff. And I've ended up with some solid hires that I'm really glad to work with, including Mary, who's in the back. And she is here. She started yesterday. Yeah. So welcome, Mary. I promise I won't embarrass you anymore. I do have her live coding session, which we recorded. We're gonna go ahead and play it on the screen. Just kidding. I'm a good manager. No. So just as a reminder before we start, this is not a formulaic step-by-step. This is just my raw opinions, and we'll roll with that. You got it? Good? Awesome. So step one, how to hire. Hiring managers, I'm talking to you. Hiring is a crazy world. It goes from simple interviews, on up to months-long vetting processes where you end up talking with, everybody from the janitor to the CEO, and everyone's going to be a thumbs up. It's kind of crazy out there. So all I'm going to do is give you my theory on the perfect interview process. It's worked well for me, and maybe it'll work for hiring managers out there. All you really need to know about it is it's the right one. So don't think too hard about that. So this is it. This is the formula. Text screen plus interview equals all you need. Remember what I said about opinions. This is probably going to rub people the wrong way. If you disagree, just go ahead and take another sip. We can make it a drinking game, you know. Might end up tonight with a bunch of slosh devs. Uber's going to make a killing. But yeah. And also, if you need proof that text screen plus interview equals all you need, just look right there. There's an equal sign. And to the right of it says all you need. So it's simple math. I'll actually go into it though. So what do I mean when I say text screen? Because that's kind of a loaded word. It can mean a lot of different things. Do I mean, you know, computer science questions on a whiteboard? Are we doing Fibonacci sequences? Am I questioning some poor dev on the phone about functional programming while they Google the answers? No, that's not what I mean by a text screen. What I mean is a work sample. There's a lot of research out there that is showing that the best indicator of job performance is the work sample. It's not the CS degree, it's not their years of experience, it's not their references, it's not that skill set column that they all put on their resumes that has every single technology they've ever even breathed at, just the work sample. So, you know, I've seen senior devs that can't instantiate a variable when they get down in front of the keyboard. I've seen junior devs who can code circles around them. I've also seen some people plagiarize their code in an interview, but that's a whole other talk. So the point is that a work sample is really the best way to see what they're going to be like on the job. And so it's probably a good question to ask, what is a work sample? Glad you asked. So I'll ask you guys a question. What is work? Day to day, day in, day out, what does that look like? For, yeah, Mary is finding out on her second day, so she could maybe tell you a little bit. But for us, it kind of looks like this. You know, you get a task, you code alone for a while, you submit your solution in a merge request or pull request for your GitHub users. And then you discuss that solution, you know, in that request. Maybe you make some changes on the fly based on the feedback, and then we call it done, merge it into dev. Or if you're working a little bit more closer to the metal, merge straight to master. So if that's the work, then what would a work sample of that be? So I think it's kind of a similar process. You give the candidates a task, they code on it alone, they submit their solution, you discuss the solution together, and maybe they make some changes right there in front of you based on the feedback that you give them. And then you call it done. There's your work sample. So yes, this is what you were thinking, that dreaded take-home challenge. I know, most people hate this. I hated it. It's really, I think, because a lot of companies do it wrong. But I will say, if you don't do a code challenge or some kind of work sample, I guarantee that you'll probably end up hiring somebody unqualified. If you end up hiring somebody unqualified, you're going to come to the fun part of being a manager or a team lead, which is firing. But that's a whole other talk. Yeah, we'll do that another time. That's a fun one. Staying focused, I'll clarify what I mean by the take-home challenge. And first off is, please, dear God, don't make candidates recreate your app. I've done this code challenge where it's basically a minified version of the company's app that you have to recreate in a week. Are you cruel? Do you purposely step on ants when you walk to work? Do you clap on the offbeat at concerts? Yeah. Don't let candidates do this. it's ridiculous. It took your team months, maybe even years, to create the app that you have, and you want a candidate to recreate a version of it in a week with their full-time job, maybe. Good luck. Secondly, you really want to focus on giving candidates a realistic task. So what is a typical ticket for a sprint? Like, any of you guys, what's a typical task that you could make up that you see day to day? What's something you guys had to do maybe this week? Yeah.
Instantiate a variable.
Instantiate a variable. I want your job. That's what I did today. My whole sprint. Yeah, so instantiate a variable. It's maybe something like create a new drop-down if you're a UI developer that takes this data, lets it be user selectable. That's a task. It's not scrape the internet for search terms and create a machine learning algorithm to crunch those search terms and predict what users are going to input into your box and create metrics on that and put those metrics in an admin dashboard and have authentication. No, that's not a code challenge you should be giving people. The important rule, keep it simple, as Dwight would say. So make your tasks reminiscent of the actual sprint tasks that you're hiring them for, the actual work they're going to be doing. My code challenge, which Mary knows very well, I actually stole it from my brother, who does a lot more hiring than me. And what it is I give them a code repository. And if you're curious, it's a Pokedex. And the Pokedex is broken. There's something wrong with it. And so their first task is to find out what's wrong with it and fix it in the code. And they do that on its own Git branch. Then they do another Git branch to implement a feature. And the feature I have is to have this list of Pokemon be filterable. And so they have some UI stuff to do. It's a React app. And then they submit that almost like it's a merge request, and we talk about it in our, basically we do a video text screen to talk about what they did. So like I said, I can't take credit for that. Stole it from my brother. You should steal it too. I think it's great. So I mentioned the text screen video conference. So that's how I do this. I give them something ahead of time, and then we go into a text screen call. And there is an aspect of live coding, which everybody hates. I hate it too. Sometimes it's painful to do. Other times it's painful to watch. But you have to see it. You really have to see your candidates actually do some coding on the fly. I've had multiple candidates that just looked amazing. Their resume, everything, talking to them, they're just so fluid. They're very, knew all the code philosophies, could talk circles around it, and then you get the keyboard in front of them, and they just panic. And not panic as in they, freak out because it's live coding, which that is a thing, but panic because they don't know how to instantiate a variable. They couldn't have your job back there. They're just, let me in. Simply put, there's a lot of fraud out there. There's, I actually had an Uber driver tell me about all the things he put on his resume that he had no idea what they even were. That was a fun ride. And then there's a couple teammates on my team that had experiences at other companies where there were people that came to work every day. They did work and all this, but it turned out, they later found out that other people were doing their coding. And so they would come to the meetings, be this fresh face, like, okay, you'd ask them to make a change right there in person. Like, I'll take it home. Oh, we're just gonna change the name of the variable. No, I'll do it when I get home. So it's a crazy world out there. So dev salaries are a sought after thing. So that's a possibility that you have to be aware of. Long story short, yep. See your candidate code. Yeah, that's all I'll leave you with. It's just actually see them code. No matter how great their take-home challenge was, see them code, see them make a change. That's all I would say. And then how to frame that, because it's not the the greatest thing in the world. Just tell them ahead of time you're gonna be doing a little bit of live coding ahead of time. It's really good for somebody to know that's coming instead of show up to an interview and be like, oh no, I've been at that interview. It's not fun. But yeah, have them. What I do is that in that video conference, I have them explain their code. I ask them, hey, were there any alternative solutions? Could you have done it this way, or could you have done it a different way? Why did you choose your solution? Let them talk about it, explain it. And then, like I said, ask them to change something. As you see them code, your confidence will either soar or wane. But that being said, don't expect a lot. Live coding is a dev's worst work, usually. I would like to see the dev where live coding is their best work. That'd be interesting. But yeah, don't expect much, and please no Fibonacci's. Yeah, if I convinced you on that, no Fibonacci sequences. It's just not applicable. If I haven't convinced you, take another drink. It's that drink. We'll never. So also one thing to think about is let them use Google, please. It's normal. Every day that I code, I need Google, and maybe that's just because I have poor memory. But everyone else I talk to that codes also needs to use Google. Sometimes you need to use Google just because you forget how the map method works because you haven't had your coffee that morning and you played a dumb drinking game at the meetup last night. So how much more is a dev, with a 4 pairs of eyes looking at them going to forget things? Just let them Google. And then it'll be interesting to see what they Google. You can talk to them about that. It's not a downside. And also, actually, I think somebody else I know in the industry calls Google an actual skill. I think he puts it on his resume as Google Foo. So you should use that. Put that on your resume. There are exceptions to every rule. I mean, what's a rule without them? Like I said, no universal truths. Nobody drank, so everyone agrees. Okay. Anyways, the first exception I do is I make the take-home optional. Not everyone loves doing the take-home, and if they really want to do that live coding, as much of it as they can in that time slot, let them have it. So if they want to do that, that's totally optional. And that can kind of help with some of those crusty senior devs who, that code challenge is beneath me and all that stuff. Don't worry, there's some of you guys there. It's okay. On that note, if your company is open to it, I would encourage you guys to look into paying candidates for work. You could actually even make it an actual task, like knock something off in your sprint with some outside help, something easy that doesn't take domain knowledge.
DHH does that.
Really? Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I wish Charter would do that, but Charter's a little behind the times on a couple things. We're trying to get them up to pace. But yeah, I think that's great. And then it also, back to the keep it simple, that helps a lot with that, because if you're paying for them to do stuff, you're probably not going to want to pay for them to recreate your entire app. So it helps to keep things simple. And then another exception I'll do is if in the text screen I saw some potential, but maybe they didn't take it all the way. Maybe it's like, well, I can see they're good at this. They kind of messed up here and there, and I'm still on the fence. I'm not sure about their technical abilities. I'll throw another code challenge at them. Maybe something more suited to their abilities, or where I feel they're at, or something that, okay, I really want to see more of this. So that's an exception where I'll throw in an extra step. And then I'll just talk about that at the in-person interview if that all looks good. And then comes the interview. One of our teammates, James, he jokes with me, and he says that I have interviews by committee. because I bring the whole team in. Not the janitor, but everyone on the dev team. Yeah, and the reason being, if you're bringing somebody onto the team, you want the whole team involved. You want the whole team excited about it. You want the whole team happy about it. And, one person is rarely a good judge of character. So it really takes your whole team to determine, is this person good? Actually, recently had an instance where somebody made it, through the in-person interview, and there's only one person on my team who's like, no, it's a no for me. Talked to them about it and really kind of explored why it was a no. And yeah, that was it. That's, it sounds kind of harsh, but you really don't want to bring somebody on the team if somebody else is against it. People are civil, they'll be fine, it's work, they'll get over it, all that fun stuff. But I've seen a lot of devs leave because of people. So if you start bringing in people that your devs don't like necessarily or have reservations about, you might be heading towards a purge on your team. I've seen a lot of devs leave because people joined the team that they didn't like, and I've seen a lot of devs leave because people they did like left. So it's all about people, and your people are very important. Make that a high priority. And going along with that, like I said, go with your team. If one person balks, take that very seriously. Now, you have to also be careful because there might be some biases going on. Make sure it's not about, maybe there's some latent racism or sexism or ageism or any other ism going on. Definitely explore that before you make your decision, because there could be something there. But at the end of the day, you want your team to be 100% excited. And then also go with your gut. I've had some situations where, the team was thumbs up, they're good, but I was still on the fence. And I was trying to convince myself and kind of go back and forth. Well, but there's this and they have that. You should just go ahead and guess it. If you're not feeling it and it's not one of those isms, you've explored, done some self-exploration, just don't convince yourself into a decision just because everyone else on your team is a thumbs up. That's, in my mind, why I think there's a lot of bad eggs out in the world. It's people rationalizing themselves into bad decisions. So don't do that. Go with your gut and don't try to convince yourself. Just move on. Again, might sound harsh, but you really got to listen to your team and listen to yourself on this. And there you have it. Tech screen plus interview equals all you need. So the tech screen is a video conference. The interview, bring your whole team in for it. And by the way, by whole team, I believe that dev team should be around 10 people, but that's a whole other talk. So if your team is 50 people, probably don't bring them into the interview. And then lastly, you have a decision, and that's your decision. So yeah, make good decisions. So step 2, this is for all you devs out there looking for jobs, how to be hired, more controversial thoughts. So yeah, I have less experience in this realm. I've only been hired so much, but I've hired more than that. So take my words with a grain of salt or 10 or another slosh of beer. That should do it. But yeah, we'll go on and let me know what you think. My first thought is that you should actually know what you put on your resume. Back to that Uber driver who, he's trying to get a job in Java, and so he put Spring on his resume. And I asked him, well, what is Spring? He literally couldn't answer it. I think he used the word framework, and that's as far as he got. So, and he would tell me how he would get into interviews, and people would just be shocked at how much he did not know about that. And I know this can be a hard pill to swallow for some people, especially people with those really long skill set columns on their resume. you've written 10 lines in Go, you're a master, right? You're a Go ninja. Not exactly. And I get it. You should be able to apply to whatever you want to apply. And hey, if you get the job, isn't that cool? But you're probably not going to get the job, and you're probably going to end up wasting your time. But let's be honest, finding a job is a full-time job into itself. You don't have time to waste, so don't worry about it. Move on and put things that you actually care about and are good at on your resume. Contrary to that, and maybe in sort of direct contradiction to that, don't be afraid to reach high. Challenge yourself is what I'm saying. If you're a JavaScript developer, which I assume most of you are here, don't apply for a Ruby dev position just because you think you can learn Ruby over a weekend. Maybe you could, but probably not well. What I'm talking about is if you're a junior, don't be afraid to apply for a mid-level position, because for the right junior, they'll probably say yes. I've a few times where I was looking for like mid to senior, but the right junior came along and I could see their potential, hired them. So yeah, don't be afraid to reach high. And don't disqualify yourself before you've even started. That's what recruiters are for. They'll weed you out, and that's hiring managers for. That's our job. And I mentioned take-home challenges and how frustrating that can be. But if they sent you one, it's actually your time to shine. It's your chance to show what it would be like if you had the job. So go above and beyond on that. Don't be afraid to knock it out of the park. And I think you'll have a lot of success there. Another thing is, I don't mind silence, but it does help when people narrate what they're live coding. Just speak aloud what they're thinking. It can be really helpful because maybe you're doing something that you wouldn't normally do, but because of the time constraint, you're gonna hard code this thing, and you're gonna do the for loop, but normally you do a reduce method, that kind of thing. It's really helpful when you explain what you're doing in that sense. And it helps, because the whole point of live coding is to see how you think. And so narrating that really helps. Another thing, and this is for the interview portion, is you're gonna talk about yourself a lot. There's all those fun interview questions like, what's your greatest strength, which is tied up in your greatest weakness, all that fun stuff. So come prepared with those. Think about your past job experiences, even if they didn't have to do with dev, and how they, challenges you had, or how they relate to this job you're applying for. Your journey as a developer. How did you get into coding? Be prepared to talk about all this. I used to not come prepared because I wanted things to be fresh. But what ended up happening when I would get into interviews is I'd just be like, and then 10 seconds of silence. So even if it sounds a little canned, that's better than staring at the ceiling for 10 seconds. And then, as I mentioned, you have a lot of experience under your belt, and it doesn't just have to do with coding. I was a visual artist before I got into development, and so that had a lot of application when I was going for front-end developer positions. Even if I don't know, you're an accountant or something like that, or you had a completely different career, or maybe you went to college and at first you're going for philosophy, but then you changed your major over to computer science. Those things are all relevant because it makes you unique as a person. I have the belief that anyone who is studying the sciences should also study the humanities. The reason I say that is it just rounds you out. It makes you unique. It helps you think outside the box. And so when you're coming to a position, especially if, for example, you're a junior applying for a mid-level, how do you differentiate yourself? How are you the most unique person to come to this challenge that this job requirement has? So that's a real powerful thing you can think about as a developer applying for jobs is, how does my personal story make me the unique person that will knock this out of the park? And then lastly, it really is a numbers game. You know, it's a numbers game for me as a hiring manager about how many people I can talk to. That's, you know, when I'm hiring for a position, it's basically, okay, guys, the next 3 weeks I'm doing tech screens, so you'll see me later. And then for you as well, there's going to be a rejection. There's going to be a lot of rejection. So be okay with that. Put yourself out there again and again and again and again. And you know, you're just going to have to be okay with it. And it's going to be tons of interviews and tech screens and code challenges, and it's, like I said, a full-time job. But if you're a good developer, even if you're a junior, even if you have no work experience, you know, a hiring manager is eventually going to find, you know, that potential in you. So you just got to keep at it. There's a poet that talks about how inspiration for her was like lightning striking. But of course, like, you never know where lightning's going to strike, and you never know when it's going to strike. So for her, writing poetry was like, you know, when she sat down to write every single day, even though she had no inspiration, it was like she was just putting herself in a place where lightning might strike. So as a candidate, you just got to keep putting yourself out there, and eventually you're in the right place, the right time, lightning will strike. Oh, I did want to mention on that. I actually applied with a charter a couple years ago, and got to the interview portion and got in a live coding session, and they actually turned me down because I couldn't remember how closures worked in JavaScript. And so I was super bummed, you know, when you know what you did wrong, and you're like, oh, if I could just go back. 2 weeks later, got another interview with a different team in charter, and I got hired on the spot in the interview. And it wasn't because I was doing anything special. I was literally whiteboarding a React component that was a render prop component. And they're like, okay, you know your stuff. It's like, okay. It's random. It's lightning strikes, right place, right time. Just put yourself in that place, and you get it. Yeah, like I mentioned. So to wrap up, hiring managers, years of experience, education, all that fun stuff. Those are really interesting data points, but they actually pale in comparison to a real life work sample. So look at your candidate's code and look at your candidate's coding. That'll tell you all you need to know. And then for candidates, years of experience in education are interesting data points. Go ahead and just ignore them. Just apply, you know, don't be a JavaScript developer applying to Ruby, but go ahead and apply to something that seems out of your reach. It'll frustrate the hell out of us hiring managers, and that'll be fun. But also weave your backstory in as the unique solution to hiring managers' puzzles. That'll really sell you as a candidate. And finally, don't give up. No matter how much rejection you get, just keep at it. So good luck out there, guys. So I assume you guys either didn't play my drinking game or you all agree with me. So there's no questions, right? No. Go ahead. What questions do we have? Yeah?
So why'd you hire me? No, I'm just kidding.
On the spot. Okay, I do have that live coding session actually. Who else?
That's real, why you hire her?
I hired her. She was more junior. She was actually one of the ones that was more junior than the position I was hiring for, but I really saw the potential in her. And her background before a developer, you know, she was doing design and stuff like that, really lended well towards what we're needing in a UI developer. So, yeah, she came through. The whole team was excited about her. What was that?
Yeah, so my question would be, would you consider giving a different work sample test to a junior developer versus a senior
I would give a work sample that would be relevant to the job they're going to be doing. So it doesn't matter if they're junior or senior, if they can do the work sample that I need them to be at the level at for that position, that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, so, but for different roles, you have like a more complicated one for team lead or whatever.
Yeah, so for example, that JavaScript library position that I'm hiring for, that one deals with a lot of complex logic. So the code challenge for that is definitely more involved than just like, hey, fix this Pokedex. Yeah.
In your opinion, what makes a great cover letter?
I think if you, like we talked about, weaving your personal story in, your journey to coming to coding as what makes you unique for the position, that would definitely make for an interesting cover letter. To be quite frank, I skim over, like I read cover letters, but I usually don't get them. I only get I think I've gotten maybe 2 cover letters in the past year or so. So maybe that would be an interesting thing to, hey, make me stand out. I've got a cover letter. But usually I just kind of skim over resumes and I just see, okay, on the resume, do they have the skills I'm looking for? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, let's bring them in for a tech screen. Because there's really only so much you can get out of a resume. You get some bullet points. You really have to see their code.
So, sorry, quick follow-up.
Yeah.
As boot camp grads, I'm sure you've seen a lot of boot camp.
I sure have.
As a boot camp grad, I know you said weave the story, but like what specific elements out of the boot camp maybe turn the tide? Does that make sense? Is the first question.
Yeah, I think one great thing about boot camps is how compressed they can be, where you're just like cramming in a ton of, education and work like in such a small amount of time where, like startups can be excited about that. Like, oh, okay, you work great under pressure. Also, there's an aspect of, I think it really is just being able to learn things very quickly on the fly. I think one of the things for me that in my personal story, it's, how I've been able to kind of pick up any technology I need to and learn it and get proficient really quickly. And I think bootcamp grads have that potential, have that to talk about. Like, hey, I picked this up in this amount of time. That's a reason you might consider me. Yeah.
So I was on a team once where one of my co-programmers would ask questions in interviews like, what are the 3 somethings about whatever? And somebody would say 1, 2, and 3. And she'd nod her head like she actually learned anything about that program.
Yeah.
As an interviewee, that kind of tells me I might not want to work on that team because to me that's a form of fraud. It's like you don't really know what anybody can do. Basically.
Yeah. Do you know the passwords? Do you know the cheat codes to get this job?
Yeah, that's a great way of saying it. So
Gatekeeping.
what would you do? What would you do with affinity fraud? Is that you could do? What would you do in a situation where if you're on that other end and somebody just keeps asking you what could be almost trivia questions? I mean, I currently have the approach of thinking I don't really want to work here. But,
yeah, I mean, that would maybe be my first thought. But, not everyone's in the position where they can just turn down job offers or potentials. So in that case, if I were in that position, I don't know the cheat codes, I would probably be the same way where it's like, I would just talk about how, I may not know the exact 3 things, but I can tell you about this technology. Let me talk about what I do know. Let me tell you an example where I've learned something really quickly and gotten up to speed.
Sorry if I can jump in. The thing about that to keep in mind is that when it's done poorly, they want you to answer the exact up, up, down, down, right? But the people that do that well are doing it for 1 of 2 things. One, to see, as Gabriel was just saying, how you think through it, and then how you explain your way to that answer if it's not on top of your head. But secondly, those things are usually very good as a way of gauging what level is this person at, just based on how they answer these fundamental questions, right?
So it's a kind of a trick question when somebody asks.
Well, it's not necessarily a trick question. It's just that what they're asking is not obvious on the face value of the question, right? So I'm saying I wouldn't discard it right away in terms of the merit of the question itself, right?
That's a good point. I think you
Yes,
were
I'd be interested to hear where your candidate flow is coming from. And then are there any particular channels that you see as more productive or producing higher quality candidates than others?
Yeah, I wish I had more control over that because I do work for a corporation and they have all their fun HR rules. So Charter uses recruiters, and it's not their in-house recruiters, it's outside third-party recruiters. So like Apex, Kforce, Code Talent, EdgeLink, Insight Global, there's several others that they use. So that's where all of my candidates come from. And Charter hires contract first, or at least in our department, and then towards a conversion eventually. So that's the drawback there. I wish I had a little bit more control over that. But I'm working with 6 agencies right now, and I've got more candidates than, except for Xamarin and Scala. So if you guys know anyone who codes in either of those languages, yeah, okay, we want to talk to you. All right. One last question? Oh, we can move.
With a K at the end of it.
Yeah. Sorry.
One thing I noticed was that a lot of this was about like the interviewing code exam process. But,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of my stumbles trying to get hired, and believe me, I have been unsuccessful at being hired for quite some time, has been at like the application step, where sometimes I don't even get a rejection. I just get a non-rejection.
Mm-hmm.
That I just don't hear anything from anyone ever, and like that's I don't know if it's even I almost feel like that's kind of been worse for me, because then you just don't have any actionable feedback. You don't know whether what you did was wrong or not, and I don't know whether there's like anything it can do to anything. What can people do to like mitigate that? Or what can people do to mitigate that? What can people do to get more actual interviews, get more actual response from companies you're applying to?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And, unfortunately, I think a lot of application portals on websites are black holes, and those go into the nether and are never read. And unfortunately, I think Charter is an example of that, where, I don't really get things from our application, because we're getting all our stuff through recruiters, and I don't even think they post those contract positions online. And so it really is those connections where, hey, you're on LinkedIn and a recruiter hits you up or finds your email somewhere, or in something like this where we're making those in-person connections. I've never personally gotten a job in tech through applying through an application online. That's just the unfortunate reality of a lot of situations, I think. So I would, I know you're obviously here at the meetup tonight. I would just encourage you to keep making those personal connections, talk with people, reach out to recruiters yourself, like Apex or other places, and or Code Talent, and see what they have for you and what they can source. And that's the best advice. If anyone else has better advice. Yeah.
Okay, so I have 2 little nuggets of advice. One thing that helped me was that DenverScript helped with my resume.
Yes.
Number 2, something that somebody else at DenverScript had to tell me about. One thing when I was getting rejections, which was really demoralizing, was, we decided to go with someone with more experience. And it was like, well, shit, then I'm dead, because how do you get more experience?
Right.
But I learned through talking to some people that they don't really mean that. They don't want to get in legal hot water, so that's their go-to line. Don't believe them when they say that.
Cool. Yeah.
Through rejection, and get somebody who talks to you, ask them to be candid and to give you feedback and say, this is for the next time. You know, I don't mind at all kind of hearing, you know, maybe why you chose another candidate or, you know, what I can do to improve myself. And even if maybe it doesn't completely, you know, tie with you what they answer, it's still something you could think about and maybe just improve on. So I always welcome kind of the rejection. Like, you know, tell me more about my rejection. Tell me why I'm wrong, you know, that way I can try and do something next time.
But yeah, I think you need to do that.
Just to piggyback on that, if they're not gonna come back to you if you hit them up 2 or 3 times, that's probably a red flag to a company that you don't really want to work for in the first place. Like, if nobody at any stage can get back to you and give you any meaningful feedback at any point, that's probably a really bad thing. So,
Guillermo, do we have time for one more question?
We have time for one more question.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah.
So speaking of resumes, when you get resumes that have like projects on them, like as someone who's going through bootcamp right now, if you haven't had time to deploy the website but you put the GitHub, is that like a deterrent or is that okay?
That's okay for me. You know, I can only speak for myself in that regard, but I look at GitHubs and I'm fine with that. And that's actually how my resume was when I was applying for charter. It's projects, you know, it's like you can put years of experience, but you know, even back then I was a firm believer that it's what you can do, it's not what you have done.
Also, just make sure your links work.
That's a big one.
That's good. Sweet,
Awesome.
thanks.
Thank you guys. I just want to say, I don't really do social media, but if you want, you can email me. You know, I'll take all your questions or take them. Love to read it.
Well, thank you, Gabriel. Thanks everybody coming out. That's all the official things we have for tonight. Probably around for another 15, 20 minutes or so. So if you want to do one last round, you have any questions for Gabriel, or if you want to chat with each other about cool things you heard in the JavaScript Live segment, please feel free. Thanks again. Oh, next month, every month we always do the last Tuesday of the month. Next month for October is an exception because the last Tuesday of the month is the Denver Devs Halloween happy hour costume party thing. So I encourage you all to go to that because I will be there. Next month we're doing, I think it's the 3rd Thursday of the month. Check the meetup site. Thanks, guys.
It was really nice